Hello, it's Adam Morrison. When it comes to top-tier contracting, my go-to choice is McGillivray Environmental. I know a thing or two about excellence, and that's exactly what you'll find with Kip McGillivray and his team. They're not just any contractor, they're the best in Spokane and North Idaho. From start to finish, they ensure your project is completed with the highest quality results. With years of experience and expertise, they handle it all. New construction, meticulous repairs, asphalt paving for residential and commercial properties, excavation, and even environmental remediation. So why wait? Reach out to Kip McGillivray Environmental today by calling 208-556-6384 for your free estimate. Don't forget to mention my name, Adam Morrison, and experience the difference McGillivray Environmental brings to the table. Again, that's 208-556-6384, McGillivray Environmental. My number one choice for all my contracting needs. The Perimeter with Adam Morrison is proudly sponsored by New Love Coffee, serving exceptional coffee while supporting Gonzaga athletics through their partnership with the ZAGS Collective. New Love Coffee is a specialty coffee company with 3 locations in Kennel Yards, North Spokane, and Liberty Lake, Washington, offering crafted coffee beverages, tea, and delicious ham pies from Bean and Pie. Committed to quality, all their coffee is single origin and freshly roasted at the original Liberty Lake location. Here's the exciting part. You can now order their freshly roasted coffee online, with every purchase supporting the ZAGS Collective's mission to uplift Gonzaga student athletes. Try their half decaf blend, a perfect combination of medium roasted decaf and light roasted African coffee. Ideal for espresso, pour over, or cold brew at home. Coffee ships fresh every Thursday, so place your order today at newlovecoffee and zagscollective.com. And fill your mornings while making a difference for the ZAGS.
Produced locally in Spokane, Washington, at Spokecast. The podcast intro song is Get Up by Jinx Universe. Listen to his music on Spotify and follow him on social media at I am Jinx Universe.
Yeah. Woo. Man, forget this job, dog. Yeah. Working this graveyard shift, I hate it. 6 in the morning, I'm off, I made it. When I get home, I'ma make
Welcome back to the
clear.
Perimeter,
First thing, I'ma
Season
drink
4,
this
Episode
green
3,
and
presented by McGillivray Environmental. Also, we'd like to thank new sponsor, New Love Coffee and Idaho Central Credit Union. It's good to be back in the cold weather, I guess.
It really is getting cold out here in Spokane.
It's getting chilly. I was lucky enough to go down to Palm Springs for that AccuSure. I always have a hard time saying that series, preseason series. They actually have one during Thanksgiving that I think USC and St. Mary's are involved in, a 14 playoff, kind of like what the battle in Atlantis is, or Maui, but not obviously there. First thoughts: terrific venue, cool little 10,000 seat arena. It's got a really good AHL hockey team. That's the Kraken's Farms team. It's like the highest, minor league hockey, and apparently it's really popular in Palm Springs. It's kind of funny.
That is funny.
It's kind of cool, but it's like, oh, the Kraken. And then the arena was like, pretty modern. It was only 2 years old, so it was like spitting brand new.
It's cool.
Yeah, it was cool. So like a kind of a different, feel to it. I like smaller venues. I've said that a ton. I think most college athletics and athletic directors would say that. Besides football, smaller the better. Doesn't have to be tiny, but it's better when the feel, atmosphere, all those things make sense. You know what I mean? So, there was only 2,500, 3,000 people there.
I was going to ask.
Which you understood because it was an exhibition. Another thing is, nothing against USC, but I don't think they care as much about basketball, and they've had 13 new players on this roster, or 12 out of 13 are new.
It was crazy,
completely new team and a new coaching staff. So they're going to have to build up buzz, which they will, because Musselman was a good coach and he's had success. So mostly our fans, but also it's kind of like, go team, because there's like nothing to play for. So it was cool in that regards. It was for charity. There was a local hospital that benefited, and then obviously, some of the teams get probably some kickback or something, or you stay for free or something. There's got to be something. But all in all, like having a real game where you fly somewhere else, you go through shoot around, you go through a game plan, all those things matter instead of playing against yourself. or playing at home are important to get out of the way.
Yeah.
So I think not having closed secret scrimmages anymore kind of they make sense because what might as well go make some money off it.
100%.
While you're at it. Mm-hmm. So just initial thoughts getting down there was like, okay, this is going to be interesting from the standpoint that I was looking for who is going to play and where. Now, it's not indicative on how the whole season's going to go, but there was the first questions that needed to be answered. How much does Braden Huff play? Right? We talked about last episode. He should play a ton, and not a ton, but he should play more than 14 minutes a game or whatever he played last year, right? It should be 22 to 25, in my opinion. Where does Caleb Battle fit in, right? Where does Dusty Stromer fit in? I know he played last year, right? And then the Inocente kid, who's been good from all counts and purposes, who was a great player at Tarleton State, defender of the year, blah, blah, blah. Does he find minutes? Then you even ask, okay, what's Ben Gregg's role? He was terrific last year and moved into a starting lineup, but there's new players, right? So there was a lot of questions that I had just from that standpoint going into that game. Obviously, I'm going to recap the game, but the win or loss was literally like at the bottom of the totem pole for this thing. Like, obviously, you didn't want to get killed like that Tennessee year. Remember, we went down and did that thing, and that looked kind of bad.
Yeah.
But you were just like, okay, as long as you're competitive and you're getting up and down, I mean, whatever.
I was going to ask about that. Like, are these exhibition games, they're completely different than a regular season game? Like, the way they're playing, right? Like, they're
What
not,
do you mean?
like, how they're not showing a lot of stuff, are they? Or is it like a real game? I mean, it is a real game, obviously. Well, it's an exhibition. My question is like, I feel like how as a player are you going and playing?
You should treat it as it's the start of the season, so you should be ready to go.
Right.
Like, it's not you're not an NBA vet that's got 15 years under your belt. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of veterans, but you should be playing hard and being ready to go. Mm-hmm. That's the way I look at it.
For sure.
You're only here for 4 years. So
Yeah.
I think it was a great opportunity for some of our guys to establish, a chance for momentum. But to start, like I did, again, I was looking for who was playing, when do they come in, how much did they play? So the first thing that was a little bit surprising just based off last year, the last couple of years, was Nolan Hickman not starting.
Yeah.
So, I didn't hear anything as far as any negative or anything like that. I think it was just to maybe see what Caleb Battle could give you. Obviously, he's a 1,300 point game scorer. He's played at 3 programs, high level. What he's going to get a senior. But I think it was just like, hey, let's give him some run and see how that works. I've heard Nolan's been fine in practice. I've heard Battle's been really good. Mm-hmm. But I think all in all, what I was watching for once I heard that he wasn't starting, it was right before I knew like during shooter our team meal, but I was obviously I didn't like tweet it out or you know what I mean, like okay, is how is Nolan going to react? Yes, it's an exhibition, but I'm a 4-year starter or 3-year starter. Mm-hmm. Preseason, all WCC, second team all WCC last year, averaged 14 a game, shot 41% from 3 on volume, had some really big games for us last year in the last 2 years, right?
Yeah.
Didn't see any pout.
Yeah.
Didn't see any, bad body language. I saw a little frustration. That's human nature. You can't ask people to be completely chipper and blah, blah, blah. And I thought he had a really great second half. So my overlaying point into this little point of the game is I think eventually I wouldn't be surprised, I should say it this way, that we just start all 3 of those guards and just play Ajayi at the 4, Graham Ike at the 5, Braden Huff moves into your backup for Ike, and Ben Gregg subs for whoever first off the bench, and then Dusty Stromer's the wing sub.
Yeah.
I think that's what might happen eventually. that just looking at the flow of the offense. Now there might be nights where, personnel wise, you can play Ben Gray, you can start Dusty Strong, all those things are in play. But I'm saying I wouldn't be surprised if that's what could happen on a regular basis, just because you have the ability to speed to get up the floor. I think Battle's big enough to guard threes. Obviously, we saw Nolan Hickman as a 2 last year, was fine.
Yeah.
So I was pleasantly surprised at how he reacted to that. And again, I know it's an exhibition, but it was like, whoa. You know what I mean? Like first game, senior year. I know it's an exhibition, but you're ready. You should be ready to go. Like you play in a week, right? So like you can't just like slough through it like you're, LeBron James on a 20th year and you got $1 billion. Like, hey, I'm taking tonight off. That doesn't really count in college basketball. You know what I'm saying? It just doesn't. Like you can't flip on the on switch. You don't have very many of these preseason games. So I was happy for Nolan. He had a great second half, played good. But again, I kind of started thinking during the game, I was like, oh, this might be a lineup that we kind of just go with. And it's not just a Jai at the 4 or Graham at the 5, but just those 3 guards is what I'm trying to say. And then you could mix and match whomever. Or you can go to a traditional and bring one of those guys off the bench. I don't know. But it was curious.
Yeah.
Do
you think that we'll see like a bunch of different starting lineups this year?
It's possible. I know that's a lame answer, but I think when you have a bunch of starting lineups, that's when you're not a very good team. We're going to be a good team. Yeah. Most of the good teams have basic starting lineups. Now, again, personnel-wise, we have a lot of flexibility, size, different situations. But I just don't see like why you'd mess that up.
Right.
Because usually the bad teams are the one that's always trying to find a new. It's like having 2 quarterbacks. Like, well, we have 2. It's like, well, you're probably not very good.
Yeah, you're gonna go this series. You're gonna go the next series.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. Like it. So and it's probably not great for the show, but like that's maybe it could happen.
Right.
You know what I mean? I hope it doesn't, because I think you once you find a lineup and then a certain rotation, I think just rhythm wise, offensively, you get better. Key performers of this game, I thought Nemhard was fantastic. As usual, he kind of coasted in the first half. And again, I just made a rant about you can't coast, but he's a guy that's played a ton. And I think he was kind of not going through the motions, but just trying to get everybody set up. Wasn't really looking for his shot and everything, which is completely fine. And then had a great second half. Battle looked good. Backed up the hey, I get to start. Had 20 points. It was interesting because he played at Arkansas last year with Musselman. So that was kind of an interesting thing. But it was also like, you maybe want a get back game, but it doesn't matter. Right. So it's like, great game, but, cool. You know what I'm saying? Thumbs up. But he looked good. And then I thought, Ben Gregg had a solid game just with his kind of hustle plays. And then I thought Ajayi was terrific inside and kind of showed what he showed at Pepperdine. Graham Ike played terrible. Who cares? He looked fine, like body movement wise. He just didn't put the ball in the basket. It doesn't matter for him. And again, I sound like a hypocrite, but he's a 5-year guy. Mount West Player of the Year, all WCC. Like it's all right if he doesn't put the ball in the basket this game, but he looked fine moving around. You know what I'm saying? So he'll be fine. That was the least of my worries. I mean, I think he missed like 6 in a row and to start like the second half. Yeah, and I just laughed on there. I was like, it's fine. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
My brother had the same reaction. He giggled and he's like, this is a shot that Graham will make like mid-season. So you could definitely tell that's the one thing I was curious about, was just like there was a point in the second half where like Graham Ike just wasn't in, and I was like, would Graham Ike be in the situation if it was a regular season game? Yeah. So
and he got in foul. What I did like too, which I didn't understand, and then I got it right away, is like I don't think they foul people out in these type of games. So remember, he got 3 fouls in the first like 2.5 minutes, and Few just left him out there, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah. So. Like I said, he's going to be fine. And I talked about this on the radio broadcast. We've been talking about, especially on this pod, new guys and how they're going to fit in. Well, we returned 81% of our minutes played last year, okay? Most of our scoring. We never talked about, like, those guys need to play good and how much, excuse me, how much better have they gotten over the summer. And that's actually a point, like, me and Huddy tried to cover because we're like, well, what about, Battle, and what about, Innocente, and, Ajayi? It's like, what about Graham Ike and Nemhard and Ben Gregg and Nolan Hickman, who played a ton of minutes and scored a lot of points? Are they going to make a jump and have a terrific senior year? Because that's really what needs to happen if we want to be as good as we look on paper. I mean, sixth in the AP and seventh in the coaches poll. And I thought all of those guys looked to the part, which is a good thing. And you knew they were, but you just never know. There's always a chance, senior slump or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Or, a little apathy early. So I thought they all played good. Again, I'm not discounting how those other guys can fit in and contribute, but you need your best guys and your horses to play well and run well, right? And I thought Nemhard, like I said, looked terrific. Battle's a new kid, but he's a veteran. He obviously looked terrific, but I thought Nolan Hickman off the bench and then started the second half was terrific. And then Graham didn't have a great game, but he moved fine. I'm just looking at his movement, especially for big. Like, how's he moving around? Is he getting to his shots? Yep. Oh, he missed another one. Who cares? You know what I mean? It doesn't matter for a player like him.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was pretty happy with how we kind of flowed in the first half. USC plays really physical, and they fly around.
The Perimeter will be right back after a word from our sponsor.
How we kind of flowed in the first half. USC plays really physical, and they fly around and talk a lot, and they were treating it like a real game as well, which was great because, again, like, you can do all of these secrets or play against yourself, craziness in the kennel. It's not real game action, you know what I mean? And you got to go against like size, like athleticism, and like we said, USC has 12 brand new players, so they're probably trying to establish more than anything culture, new program, just how we do things. And these are all transfer portal guys that are trying to get a lineup. They have no rapport with the coach from the previous year, so like it's all hands on deck for these guys. So you could tell, and this is not a knock on our guys, but their intensity was a little bit more than ours early. You know what I mean? And you could tell, like, oh, this is a brand new program. Like, these guys are trying to get established. Coaches are jumping up off the bench yelling. And so I think that was terrific for us to handle. We ended up having a 2-point lead at half, which didn't make any sense. We were getting outplayed, but we got the free throw line a ton. There was so many effing whistles, man. Yeah, I think it was a 32 to 26 free throw attempts. I think we had 32 and they had 26 or whatever. Yeah, and it was just like, oh my god, like, stop. Like, and I get it's early season, but like, some of them were ticky tack. And I know the officials always get emphasis, and they're going to call it the way they do. And they were Pac-12, WCC officials, like big-time officials. But it was, like, really annoying to call the game. I was like, this is so boring. It was.
Makes for a long game, right?
It just makes for a long game, and it makes it just, it's just not fun, no flow. So that was hard to sit there. And then also, like, to be honest, on the backside, it's like, okay, it was 94 yesterday. It was like 89 today. I want to get the hell out of this gym and, like, go to have a nice dinner and sit out on a patio in October. You know what I mean? Like, that's like kind of what was on my mind anyway. So I was like, just get this game over with, man. Like, but yeah, like I said, we go in the half up to mostly up from the free throw line, keep it in, or keeping us in the game, excuse me. But it ended up being a better flow game in the second half. I think there was one point that USC scored like 8 straight times. Yeah. Which is crazy, which is a bad number, obviously. We got it going offensively as well. Hit some big-time shots. Jai hit a big-time 3 late. they ended up winning by 3, but I thought it was good for us to have an opportunity to play in late game situations. I know this sounds cliche, but you got to go through them with the lights on. You work on them in practice, but you got to do them live action. Mm-hmm. And it's nice to do it in a preseason game, so then if you do fuck something up, you can go back and work on it. Yeah. You have tape and reference it. So I think all in all, I was pleased with our effort for the most part. Obviously, defensively, if we're giving up 96, we're not going to be very good, but there's certain things that will ratchet it up, right? And then I think some of the officiating was just hard both ways. I mean, they would say the same thing. But, I walked away from the game, just like, well, I think that's a positive for both clubs. I liked how we looked. I liked how our main guys looked. Impressed with some of our new guys. June barely played. I think it's going to be hard for him to get into the lineup. I don't mean that I'm just got to be honest with people. There's so much talent at his spot. I thought Ajayi looked great. Inocente off the bench, I think, is going to be an interesting, has a chance to play. If he does, he's got to make the most of his opportunity, but definitely skilled enough. Mm-hmm. Great athlete, shoots it better than what leads on. Good defender, so I think he can fit in as like a role, maybe stretch the floor, but be kind of a lockdown, play a 3-4 defensive role. Mm-hmm. Dusty Stromer looked okay. So hopefully he, gets himself going early in the season. He had some struggles last year. He looks bigger, looks faster, looks twitchier, but didn't really try to be an offensive threat. I get it. It's early. There's a lot of other players. It's not like he's making bad reads, but sometimes you have to be a little bit selfish and get yourself going. Mm-hmm. So hopefully he can do that because he's a talented kid, high-level recruit, he's got the frame, great kid, all those things. I just want him to get going is what I'm trying to get at. I'm not trying to hate. Yeah. You always got to say that nowadays, but got to get yourself going because this is a stacked lineup, right? And so it's not a year where you're going to get to play just on default. And not saying he did last year, but now there's more guys. Yeah. And so hopefully he can get himself going because he has all the tools and works hard, all those things. Yeah. I wouldn't say it if it wasn't. I wouldn't even say him on the pot. I wouldn't say him on anything. But I just hopefully he has a chance to get himself going because there's a lot of good players on this team.
Yeah, as a fan, it's a good problem to have, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And obviously you want to see all these guys succeed, but and maybe it's going to be a situation where Dusty scores 15 points here, 15 points there, but then doesn't do stuff other games. It's kind of like what he did last year, but I'm excited to see all these guys contribute because I don't know if I've ever seen a team this deep, but yeah, it's interesting. It's very interesting.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun year, honestly. And we would never say it's going to be a terrible year, but talent wise, it's going to be pretty fun. Mm-hmm. And it's a good problem to have, like you said. But again, I'll go to the first episode, and we touched on it a little bit with Huddy. There's going to be some hurt feelings this year. This hasn't just been number-wise. Mm-hmm. And so Fewey and the staff are going to do a good job, and they always do, of keeping kids engaged. But there's going to be guys that don't play as much as they feel like they should, and that'll be an ongoing theme. And it's not me trying to stir the pot because I don't do that. I just tell it like I see it, but I also know where my loyalty is and blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. But there's going to be some hurt feelings this year with certain guys. Mm-hmm. It's just the reality. But all in all, again, I was impressed. I thought we looked good, looked the part. Congrats to USC winning that. I mean, 'cause it's a cool game. It ended up being exciting for the fans. I think it's a great venue. Hopefully we consider that Thanksgiving tournament another time because it's easier for our fans to get there, obviously, instead of going to Maui or Bahamas. Like, you got to be kind of in a special, bracket or whatever. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot of money to head down to go watch some games. And so it's like, let's just pop into Palm Springs. Like, that's a nonstop flight.
Easy trip,
it's an easy trip. And it's like, it's still the same temperature. Cool, So super impressed with our guys. And hopefully, we play. Who do we even play tomorrow?
We play Warner Pacific.
Warner Pacific. Was the NAI? Something?
Yeah, they're in Portland. Yeah.
Okay, so we play them tomorrow, but obviously we got to get into November 4th, our opener versus Baylor, who's obviously a terrific team. We got history against them. They beat us in the championship game at 21, right? Yeah, 21 at the Final Four, the COVID year, in the weird Final Four where we were all wearing masks, and me and Huddy were almost to the nosebleeds, trying to call a game wearing a mask in between. It was good job by the NCAA getting the games on. I don't even talk about it. But I think that was the last. No, we played them in South Dakota or something the year after, and they beat us again. So they kind of have our number recently. I think Scott Drew is a fantastic coach. He's been there 22 seasons. I read.
Yep.
And I'm sure some people know this, not all, but the program he took over was an absolute mess. There was a murder of teammates.
That's right. I remember that.
Yeah. So it was basically one of those where who wants this job? Please take it, or we're just gonna shut basketball down. Because it was just such a toxic mess.
Yeah.
And so what he's done with this program, obviously winning a national championship, but getting him to every year relevance in the Big 12, which I think is the best basketball conference in the country, and the numbers usually support that, is really terrific. And I think he's a good person in general. You know what I'm saying? He's not there's no slime to it or feeling of slime. He gets good players, he develops them, they play the right way. And, they've hit lightning in a bottle, not in a bad way, or saying lucky, but they found a year and a crew. Then, obviously they beat us, but they were good too as well. So I think it's a terrific series. It's one of three. They're all neutrals. So there was some talk this year that we might have played it in Vegas, which I'm glad we don't, because I'm tired of going there. I mean, seriously, it gets old quick. I mean, it's nice to go there once for the WCC, but then to call it good. And then I think the rumor is, don't quote me on that, obviously, but next year will be Dallas, which would be cool.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Because I think that's the closest one to Waco. I'm not a Texas geography one, but Huddy was Dallas is the right one. I was what about Houston? He's it's 5 hours away. I'm I don't know. You know what I mean? But
right.
He's from Texas, so he's or whatever. He's just you just tell me where it's closest, what airport are we flying into, and we'll be good.
Yeah.
So I think this is a cool, series is what I'm trying to get at. I think it is a little bit different that we're playing our opening game in the Spokane Arena. Now, we've had success there recently.
Yep.
And I've talked about it last season. And if you haven't listened, I'm going to give a little recap for the last season's. Huey didn't like playing in that gym for a long time. Remember, we had a stretch where we didn't play in there forever?
Yeah.
Or we'd play one game every once or 2 or 3 years. You know what I mean? And I think it kind of rubbed the people the wrong way, but he had some reasoning behind it because we had some weird matchups against Eastern. We lost to Memphis early, 2003, 4, 5, 6, those years. My year, I think at Eastern, we beat them my freshman year, and then I think we played them my sophomore year. And I think both games were way too close for comfort. And his thought process was why are we playing a close rival or a rival, but they have nothing to lose, and then we're playing on a gym that we both don't play on, so they kind of have that advantage. And then when we lost to Cal's group in 2008, Calipari's group, that was I think it was a Derrick Rose team, so they were really good.
Yeah,
I think that's the team that lost in the championship game. Anyway, so he didn't like the arena, and I don't blame him. It's kind of a different place to shoot at now. Recently, they've made it better. The atmosphere is better. It's, livened up a little bit. They changed the configuration on the end lines a little bit of how the fans look. So kudos to that. And then I think the Kentucky game, what was it, 2 years ago, where it was sold out and we came out and kind of blew them out, and the crowd was electric in there. I think that was okay, we need to have a game in here every year, and we did Pepperdine last year. And then I think having a Baylor type is great for our fans, gives other people opportunities. Long-winded answer by only issue is playing your first real game on a neutral that counts as a home game is going to be kind of weird for me. I think it'd be nice to run out underneath the tunnel and play in the kennel. You know what I'm saying? Like especially with opponent, but we back it up with Arizona State. We'll talk about them later, in the next episode. But Baylor's going to be tough, man. They have great players as usual. Let me look at their splits from last year. Here's the hard part with doing college basketball now. Maybe it's somewhat laziness by me, but there's so much turnover that when you play a new team like this from a year before, you can't even you could kind of reference it, but you also have to be like, well, what guy transferred and what transfer came in, and you know what I mean?
Right.
It's harder than it is, right? And sometimes you look at some of the other guys' numbers from last year. Well, you can't just plug them in as they're going to work in the Big 12 because some of these guys come from smaller conference. Nothing wrong with it. But you can't just automatically, well, he averaged 16 in SoCon and he's going to average 16 in the Big 12. Early season, what do you think? I'm like, do you want my real answer? Or do you want me to BS through it? It's hard. Like with USC, like we said on the pregame, I know it was an exhibition, we were like, there's 12 guys, man. They're going to play hard, and Musselman's got a lot of different guys. Let's go to break, Here's our sponsor, Coors Light, And
it's one of those things Baylor's been good over the last decade.
Decade, yes.
And so you just assume that they're going to be good, but you don't know exactly how they look because they don't have as many returning players, and they have with transfer portal now, it kind of changes everything so much.
It does. So I'll give you their kind of quick splits from last year. They're 24-11, which is solid. Obviously in conference they're 11-7, which is a hard conference, right? The Big 12 is the hardest in the country, in my opinion. We're good at home. Neutral, they were 5-4, 15-2 at home. So obviously maybe that's whatever advantage for us. We're going to have a great crowd in the arena. They averaged 80 points a game, gave up 71 last year. Shot it good from the field, which they're always known for. Similar to us, like in the 48s, 49s, 50, 51s, they shot 48 and then 38 from three, which is terrific. I've always talked about, if you've listened to this show, if you're around the 39s to 40s as a team, you're really, with volume, you're elite. And it makes it really difficult. It makes it easier for you to run a lot of your stuff because you have the floor spacing. They're picked fourth to finish in the Big 12 in the coach's poll. I know fourth sounds like, well, what's that? If you're in the top half of the Big 12, you're good. Quick reference to that. Was it TCU we played last year or the year before? I think it was the year before. And with Kenny Dixon or whatever his name is, the old coach at Pitt. Anyway, I might have messed his name up, but everybody knows who I'm talking about. They finished 8-8 and were like a 5 seed or whatever, 6 seed that year or whatever it was. And they finished 500. That's how good that conference is. Yeah. That's what people don't realize. That's a hard-ass conference to play in.
It's deep, yeah.
It's super deep. Yeah. Sometimes they have 8 teams in the tournament. Usually it's 6 for sure, which is crazy. You know what I mean? But if you're 19-12 and you're in that league and you finish in the top half or in the around middle and above, you're going to get in. Teams are here you go. Unless you have 4 crazy bad losses, which you probably don't. They'll put you in because it's you've gone through the gauntlet, and we know if you put you in an NCAA tournament game, whoever you're going to play, it's going to be a hard out for you. You know what I mean? They want competitive.
Definitely.
So I he's done a good job of developing. There's a nice little stat here. They've had a top 20 draft pick in the last, I think 4 drafts, which tells you, they have first round talent. They have guys that, play at the next level. That stuff matters, recruiting, what have you. So yeah, I just think that this is going to be a terrific, matchup. I think it's going to be fun for our fans. They usually play a similar style with maybe a little bit more physicality, emphasis as far as rebounding. I'm not saying a toughness thing, but I think their bigs are usually more of set picks, dive, and maybe score occasionally, and their guards kind of do all the scoring. we are kind of like that, but we've always had a Graham, a Drew, just all of our great bigs.
Right.
We throw it to inside. Like, they don't do that as much. They kind of run pick and dive stuff, throw it to them on short rolls, lobs, but they don't just put back to the basket, throw it to the guy. They kind of space the floor and run kind of a whatever quote unquote modern offense, pro style offense. So it's usually good basketball when you play them. I mean, last year they had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys average over 10 and a half, and their leading score was 14. So well balanced, and that's always hard to defend. Yeah, it's going to be interesting, to see what they look like. I mean, their leading scorer, is not returning Jacoby Walter, but he averaged 14 and a half. But again, it's hard to give you, the listener, because usually I can watch tape, and I do, or I just go on YouTube and watch it, half of a game and just see. Don't know anything.
Right.
I can just tell you, they're going to be good. And they always are, and they've had our number the last few times. So I think for us, especially to start the season, I'm going to be looking for who starts. Okay. We talked about that in the first half of the episode. How do we get our bigs going? And I'm included Jai's in that. I know he's kind of a tweeter, but I'm going to call him as a 4 this year. And Braden Huff is included in that. So how are our bigs scoring? How are they going to handle the physicality? Because their MO defensively is to push you out beyond your normal catch spot, beyond the block. John Jacobs, little sidebar here, and the listeners might find this interesting. So he was our Dobo, director of basketball operation. Everybody calls them Dobos. What year was it? I'm trying to think. He was here I think 15, 16, 17, one of those 2 years, I think. And he ended up getting a job with Scott Drew as a lead assistant.
Okay.
John was kind of the first, him and Tommy, but I think he helped Tommy see it a little bit more of analytic style basketball. John coached overseas and had a great, he's a great basketball mind, but understood hey, these type of actions are better. We need to get away from flex action, just stuff like that. And so John was great, but he wanted to coach. And we didn't have a spot for him, but he was a Dobo for a year and then moved on. Well, John just got the Florida Atlantic job. Okay. But John was on that staff that won the national championship. He was the lead assistant.
Gotcha.
Okay. And the last 2 seasons, or 2 or 3, we've been in the same pod as them at the NCAA tournament, which is great. So hey, bud, and so you go out and have a beer with people you like. And that was last year with Arizona. We're not in the same bracket, but same location.
Right.
Because that's how they do it. So it's kind of cool is you see guys and you can just go have beers. And so I seen John, it was a couple years ago, and, we get to have a few beers, and he knows of my kids. I know about his kids. And I'm like, John, what was your guys' strategy in that national championship game? He goes, you really want to know? He's like, yeah. And he's like, we told our bigs that if Timmy catches the ball inside the 3-point line, you're coming out. They basically just told him to tackle him and shove him. And remember he was getting his catches out at 20 feet, 25 feet. Point is, that's how Baylor plays with their bigs. And it's not dirty. It's just they are really physical, not in a cheap way, but they try to take you out of your normal spots. And remember, we couldn't run offense.
We couldn't
run offense.
Yeah.
And so it'll be interesting playing them with this crew. Again, referencing the bigs. How will our bigs handle the physicality inside? Graham's a physical player.
Right.
Braden's more of a finesse, but he's not soft. Ajayi's quote unquote a physical player, but that was at Pepperdine. That's not a knock now here. Okay, we're playing a real opponent now. You know what I'm saying? And Ben Gregg will fight anybody. But Ben's not going to. It's not asked to go score 25 to go win a game. That's what I'm saying. So that's what I'm really looking for. And then again, who starts, and then what's the rotations look like? Got a little bit of taste of it in in the first exhibition game. But I find it fascinating as the year goes on. And I apologize to listeners if I keep talking about it, but it's kind of the theme of the year. It might calm down because I always believe, and I've talked about it, as the year progresses, you get to, I always call it 7.5 man rotation. Your eighth guy, sometimes you play him a lot, sometimes you don't, but there's 7 you always play, usually heavy minutes in college basketball where they're allowed to make mistakes, but you know what you're going to get. They're allowed to be in rhythm, all those things. So I'm really excited. I'm really excited for this season. That's no me just hyping it up because I'm on a show, and I call games. I just think we have a great nucleus. Like I said, 81% of our minutes come back. Most of our scoring comes back. It's going to be fun to watch those guys from the seasons before and see how well they can fit in to springboarding, after great junior and senior campaigns, how they can, finish off their Gonzaga careers. So yeah, I think it's a great test right off the bat. I wish it was at home, but the arena's actually been good to us recently. They're good, it's nicer in there and stuff like that. And it's cool for other fans to be able to have an opportunity to go, and they actually serve beer in there. So then people are more excited and usually more visceral with their comments to other teams and other opponents.
It's really cool that it's the first official day of the NCAA season.
Oh, nice.
And so to have a top 10 matchup, it's
what fans always complain about, that there's not enough of them. But okay, so we're giving it to you. So I think it's great that we're having this series because they're a respectable program. I mean, I know they've gotten our number a few times the last couple of matchups, but Scott Drew does it the right way. They're good people. John's, like I said, he's got the job at Florida Atlantic, but I always had a lot of respect for him. They had Rem Bakamis there, and now it's with Tommy at Arizona. You know what I mean? Like it's a Gonzaga, Baylor. There's some connections, like good people connections, right? Even though we play each other and probably don't like each other for 40 minutes, it's not like they're bad dudes. And I like programs like that. So I think it's a terrific matchup. Looking forward to it. Obviously, we'll break the game down afterwards. Hopefully, we're 1-0 because then we go into an Arizona State team who has a name. I don't know how good they're going to be this year. They just got waxed by Duke in an exhibition at Cameron. But again, I don't want to be a hypocrite, but they lost by like 50 in that.
Oh, wow.
It was bad.
Yeah.
Or 30 to 50, like some massive score. So I was like, ooh. But you never know. They could, it's a long way to travel, blah, blah, blah. You were saying earlier we're going to have listener questions?
Yeah, we got some listener questions.
Fire away.
The Perimeter will be right back after a word from our sponsor. Beautiful.
You were saying earlier we're going to have listener questions?
Yeah, we got some listener questions.
Fire away.
The first one, we kind of already covered it, but I'd love to just get your quick take on it. Do you see the initial starting 5 of the season as it was on Saturday, or with Nolan coming off the bench? I know you kind of already mentioned it.
I think he's going to have to find a way to start Nolan and battle if they both continue to play well. That's just where I think we're headed. I think Nolan's earned the right to start, not by, how do I say this the right way? It's not like he's given it to him. He's been through some battles with us, and he's been through some ups and downs. So I think starting him. But again, if you look at, we don't have the box, but I think he ended up playing like 27 minutes.
Yeah.
Off the bench. And he started the second half.
Yeah.
So I think even if you start him and then bring Battle off, you're going to do a 3-guard rotation, and I've talked about with the bigs, where you're going to at least get 25 minutes to 30. It's not right.
Yeah.
I know they all played 30. They both played 35 last year, Nemhard and Hickman. That's what they averaged, 35 minutes a game. But also, like, if you're playing that and you're winning and you're on a flow type of team, you kind of have to sit there and be fine with it.
But I also feel like we talked so much last year about
not having depth.
Not having depth.
Yes.
And Hickman
Exactly.
looking tired at the end of the game.
Yep.
It's like,
no, you're right. So maybe it's a blessing but I just think personally, this is just first of the week, and I could be totally wrong. It's my personal opinion. I think we'll eventually get to that where we start that lineup more than not. But if we don't, I don't think it's obviously not the end of the world. And I think both of those players, Hickman and Battle, are mature enough to be like, okay, I'm not starting tonight. It's not the end of the world. I'm going to play 25 minutes plus.
yeah.
So I think we're fine as of now. First game.
Yeah. This kind of is in line with that question with Hickman not starting, but did KB have a great game or is he a ball hog?
I don't think he's a ball hog. I didn't see that.
No, I didn't see it either.
Yeah.
I think it goes to your point where you were talking if you're in this lineup and you're on the court, you want to score. You want to make an impression, and that's what we all want as fans, is like to have players that can score. And I think KB came here for a reason. He saw an opportunity, and like we need pure scores like KB.
Yeah, he gives us a scoring threat. I thought Nolan was a scorer last year at the 2 spot. They both have that ability, but I didn't think during the game that it felt like it was rushed or forced. But it was only one game, obviously, but I didn't see that.
Yeah.
I think he shot the number it was like 7-8 free throws a game, like was in the top, top 10 or whatever in the country, especially at his position. So he brings a foul pressure situation, which is always good. And then he also brings a aggressiveness that you can play off of. Now, are you going to get sometimes where you get a bad shot out of that when you're trying to draw contact? Yeah. That's just reality.
Yeah.
But I don't think it was a ball hog situation, none the least. And I think that's a false narrative.
Yeah. I mean, I'm excited to see him get to line just because what Tom said last week of that he attempted more free throws than we made last year.
Yeah.
Like that's a great thing to have on the team.
100%. It does so many things for you offensively. Creating foul pressure, obviously, is getting into the bonus, especially in college basketball, is huge. Making free throws, but just being able to score when you're not flowing. I mean, we just talked about it. I know, again, it's an exhibition, but we were up by 2 in that first half. I was like, we're not playing very good. And you look like, we shot 16 free throws. We made 12. It's like, that's why.
Yeah.
Because we got to the free throw line. So that matters.
Yeah. This one's from Facebook, from Rick. Besides the obvious names to watch this season for Gonzaga, who is a player to watch that might come off the bench that can make an impact for the team?
Well, Chente, I think, is one of those interesting ones because he had a great year at Tarleton State. I've heard great things. I watched him in practice, and at first I was like, okay, maybe it's a year. Like he's ready now, but it's maybe a year. But then as practice continues, like, oh, man, he's really athletic, man. Like, he's got length and sneaky length, and he's strong. And then he was making threes, and I'm like, shoot, he might be able to sneak into this thing. And then again, and not to beat a dead horse, like Dusty Stromer's got to have a big year for just himself. And I'm not saying like light the world on fire, but he's got to be aggressive. So I'm curious to see how he plays off the bench. I think that's going to be his role. I think Ben Gregg always is impactful no matter if it's scoring or not. So I think he's going to be fine whatever role they throw him into. I'll still complain if Braden Huff is not playing more than 20 minutes a game.
Yeah.
I complained about it last year, and I wasn't the only one, but I was the only one saying it.
Yeah.
He needs to play more.
Yeah, he does.
And he will. I think it was just a freshman year thing, but he's just so efficient, and I just love his game and soft touch. I like lefties.
Yeah.
Plays hard. I don't think he's as bad defensively as it leads on. I think sometimes that stuff gets overblown. Or just like his game. So I think he needs to play. Like, he needs to play where he's getting touches. They're throwing it to him. It's just like Graham, but he's your sub for Graham, or playing both at the same time. We've done that. We just have a lot of options this year. But off the bench, I think Chente has a legit opportunity, and then Stromer's, from all accounts, and this is no BS, he's had a great summer and looked good in summer. He's had a good fall camp. He needs to put it to action this year.
Yeah. Last question. after the excuse me, from YouTube, I'm not going to say the name. After the conference switch, is the improved conference schedule going to result in a watered down out of conference schedule? And he's not talking about preseason tournaments like Maui or multi-year agreements. But
that's a great question.
I guess the follow up is like, will the team still feel compelled to put itself on the national map?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Yeah,
because it's an easy thing to combat that. It's like, well, we're already playing, 8 games with teams in the top 60. What do you want us to do? Why would we make it, 12?
Right. Yeah.
And there's formulas to getting seeds, and it's not like you're ducking anybody, but there's legit formulas. There's certain barometers, and it's a math equation. USF figured it out one year, Todd Golden, and they got the NCAA tournament because of it. He figured it out, and he finished third in the WCC, and got an automatic bid because his RPI or his net, his Ken Palm was high enough.
Yeah.
Okay. You know what I'm saying? So, like, I don't really know. It's a great question because naturally you would think it would taper off a little bit. Now, are we going to play 14 home games like UW used to when Romar was there in a row? He used to do that before conference. No, we're not going to do that. But are we going to maybe say, all right, let's get 6 of these that we can check off right off the top? Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. And it's a great question. And I can't even speak to it because I don't make schedules. But if it was me, I would follow that math equation, whatever the math equation says. And if it says you play less hard games in the non-conference when you're going to play a bunch of good, theoretically, Utah State's good. Wazoo's always, I think we're going to be solid, at least. Okay? I'm not saying they're going to be bad, but they're going to be solid at least and maybe get better. Boise State's good. Colorado State was good last year.
They were, yeah.
San Diego State's good. Okay? So that's just off the jump. Okay, so then that's 2 games each with those, home and away.
Yeah.
Right?
It's
it's interesting. That's one of the best questions we've ever gotten.
Yeah, no, it's really good. I'd love to.
That's a hold, and hopefully we still have a show in 2 years, and we'll answer it in 2 years.
Yes, well, I'll put it in the archives.
Yeah, put it in the archives, and we'll come back to it. But yeah, I think naturally you would say no. But naturally, like I said, it's a math equation, and not saying we won't play UConn in Madison Square Garden like we're doing this year, but maybe you eliminate one of those games or you don't play Kentucky or whatever.
Yeah.
And because you're like, hey, we got to get to 22 wins at least or 23. I know we've had more than that, but like now we're playing a better conference. There's an art to this.
And the conference isn't even full yet. So
who knows who else is coming?
Exactly.
And I've heard, Memphis maybe, and they're usually solid basketball. I've heard Grand Canyon make that, but they don't have football, but just for basketball, and they're solid. I know they're joining the WCC, but we're leaving before we get to play them.
Right.
Or whatever. I think we'd maybe play them one season, but it's kind of like, I felt bad. I was like, oops. But yeah, I think that's a terrific question. It's something that you kind of have to kick the can down the road. I don't know. It's a devil's advocate one, really, to be honest. Like, well, if you do this, then maybe that. But I know for years, obviously, and everybody knows this, Fewy's gone out in the non-conference, not just because it's WCC, but have challenged themselves as a program. And it's part of the reason we've gotten to where we're at, and part of the reason we get the recruits. It's part of our brand. So we're not going to just abandon that brand aspect of it. We're going to still want to be playing in prime time and wherever on ESPN and on Fox and whoever, right?
Yeah, I think it will be. I think it will be similar, just because I think we will. But I don't know. Like, I think it will be, Michigan State. Like, I think there'll be games that we keep on taking, and we will want to play good teams, but like we might not play have 4 of them or 5 of them.
Yeah.
We might have 3 of them.
3 of them.
Yeah.
No, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like you kind of have to, you have to be smart about it. And I know somebody that's going to be listening to this, like, well, that's soft or whatever. It's like, dude, there's a formula. It's just, and it's as a business too. And the business part of it is making NCAA tournament and going in deeper runs.
Yeah.
So you can not be a fan then, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, it's part of the deal. So that's a terrific question, though. That's one of the best we've ever gotten. That's kind of stumped me a little bit because I can't give you a direct answer.
Yeah.
I just can't.
Yeah, well, keep on sending them in. I love to
Yeah.
get questions, and we'll try to get them on the show. Messages on Instagram, leave a comment on YouTube, Spotify, wherever you're listening. Like, please reach out, and we'll try to get the questions answered on the show.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We'll do it every week or every other week. If there's like kind of a weird nothing week, then yeah. But I got to make one quick point too, radio-wise. If you listen to the podcast, want to know, we're on 590 now, not 1510, and then 96.1 FM, so 590 AM. It's a little bit different. And you can find us in the TuneIn app. I'm giving a free plug, but
thank you. I was like searching for it on Saturday.
It's 590 now, and I think you can get it on 590s on iHeart as well. So, which I think is great because I have people ask me all the time, like, I live in Phoenix or whatever. How do I listen to you? I'm like, the TuneIn app, and they're like, what?
Yeah,
and I'm like, Tune -in app, then you could find it. You know what I mean? But like sometimes it's harder, and I, like my parents, obviously, they're like, listen to my son on the radio, but like there's a lot of people who are like, I want to listen to your pregame and then your postgame.
Yeah,
because it doesn't line up. Thanks, Justin Timberlake and Janet Jackson, but audio doesn't line up anymore with television. It's 5-second delay or whatever, the FCC delay.
Yeah.
So we're always ahead, but people like to listen to the post game and pregame, which is great. It's cool. Thank you. And it's great for us because ad dollars, for the university. So please listen. But for local or iHeart, 590 AM, and then 96.1 FM in the Spokane area. Great episode. I appreciate Brennan, you helping out. Got to thank our sponsors, McGillivray Environmental, Idaho Central Credit Union, and New Love Copy.
Yeah.
See you next week.
Working this graveyard shift, I hate it. 6 in the morning, I'm off, I made it. When I get home, I'ma make this clear. First thing I'ma drink is a Rainier beer. I ain't no lush, shut up, hush. This is how I zone out. I'ma take this check, put it on me. I'm a much better boss than an employee. Just cause you got time, don't waste time. It's about time, feel the sunshine. You got time, but don't waste time. It's go time.
Podcast intro song is Get Up by Jinx Universe. Listen to his music on Spotify and follow him on social media at I am Jinx Universe. Produced locally in Spokane, Washington at Spokecast.